and welcome to this week's NESN Patriots Podcast. I'm Zack Kyed, joined as always by Zack Cox. Zack, how are we doing right now?
We're doing well. We're not doing all that much different than we were at this point last week, which I guess is just the nature of quarantine life. But it's going well. Finalizing some draft preparation. We're really coming down toward the home stretch here, but everything's going well here. How are you doing?
Doing well. I think that, the more we do these podcasts, at least the people who are watching on video are just seeing the hair get a little bit longer, the facial hair get a little bit more aggressive, and maybe us kind of building up our home setups a little bit better here.
Yeah, the beard might reach its breaking point pretty soon. It's unshaven since quarantine began, and I don't know how much longer that's going to be able to last while people still allow me to be on camera.
That's a good point. And yeah, the hair and the beard and everything, it was like a funny thing when we thought this was only going to be like a few weeks or a month or something. At this point, yeah, we might be Grizzly Adams type beard by the end of this. But NFL draft is just a little bit, is a week away. We'll say it's a week away at this point, which it feels like it's kind of, this whole draft process has been going on for a long time. But I'm certainly excited about the NFL draft finally being here. Excited to see what the Patriots do with all of their picks. They trade up, trade down, who they take. They currently have 12 picks, a first-round pick. What is it, 3 third-round picks?
3/3, a fourth, a fifth, and then a bunch near the end, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see what they do with all of those, but it's going to be a little bit of a different setup with it being a virtual draft rather than everyone kind of being all in the same place. But, as far as a live event goes, I think the draft being a virtual draft is the best you can possibly have. It's basically like doing, a fantasy draft for just regular people.
For sure. I mean, this is what live sports it looks like at the moment. I mean, this is the closest that anybody's going to get to a live sporting event for quite a while, most likely. So yeah, people are definitely fired up for it. I'm pretty fired up for it. It feels like, this draft process has just been so long for us just because the Patriots got eliminated from the playoffs a month earlier than they are used to and we are used to. So we've been digging into this draft class for what feels like 7 or 8 months now at this point. So it'll be nice to finally see how everything comes together next week.
Yeah, I think I have one of the better senses of this draft class than I have in years, really, just because of the Patriots' early playoff exit and all of the draft preview stuff that we've been doing. But for this podcast, we are going to do a mock draft. I think we did this last year. We might have done it the year before, kind of become an annual tradition where we are the Patriots, and then we will make, obviously, all of the decisions like a regular mock draft. But for those of you who are watching this, you'll actually be able to see our thought process here. You'll be able to see us and the mock draft simulator that we're using. And for anyone who's just listening, we'll certainly talk you through this as much as possible. So without any further ado, let's get this going right now. I will share my screen on here so that Zack can see what we're doing, so that all the viewers can see what we're doing. So we are going to be using FanSpeak's On the Clock mock draft simulator. We have the premium version so that we can trade. We will, of course, be the New England Patriots. We will do all 7 rounds, all 12 picks of the Patriots. Usually what I do is I use CBS's Sports Composite Rankings. I haven't found a perfect ranking system on this, but that's the one that I know best. So I think that's what we're going to roll with here.
Yeah, that's the safest bet. I've gone through some of the other ones, and some of them don't have kickers and are just kind of missing players. So CBS is usually the safest bet.
Definitely. Which big board should the computer use? Let's switch it up a little bit here and have them have a random big board so that, we can't go completely by stock on what all the picks are. And then we'll do difficult setting. Team needs, there's not a major difference here. We'll go with Steve's team needs. FanSpeak Steve.
Trusting you here, Steve.
Yep. I think he's the guy who built this whole thing. So shout out to Steve. All right. So this thing is firing up right now. Patriots have the 23rd overall pick in the first round. Usually if there's a trade offer here, it comes up right off the bat. We don't have one of those. So let's start the round. And then we might get a trade offer when our pick actually comes up as well. So what are you thinking about as far as the first round pick for the Patriots goes?
Well, I think the most likely avenue for them, and probably the smartest avenue, is to trade out of this first round. The gap from 23 to 87 is just, it's too big, especially with the kind of level of depth that this draft has. I think they need to get some picks, most preferably in that second round, or at the very least kind of early in that third round. They've got to close that gap somehow.
I agree with you. Just looking at the board right now, our pick is up. Iowa's defensive end, AJ Epinesa, is an interesting player, good pass rusher, kind of like a Trey Flowers type, maybe a little bit bigger, but didn't test very well. So I'm not sure if he'll actually wind up being a first round pick. This is interesting, though, because Jordan Love and Justin Herbert are both still on the board here. That's basically the way that CBS's draft rankings are set up. I don't anticipate that happening, but if either one of those guys is there, the Patriots might be interested. Otherwise, Kenneth Murray, the Oklahoma linebacker, Zack, the Wisconsin edge defender. I'll let you decide here. Do you want to make a pick here or try to trade back to bridge that gap a little bit?
Well, I think if Justin Herbert falls to 23, I think I would pick Justin Herbert at 23.
Yeah.
I also think it's pretty unrealistic that he's going to fall to 23. So to keep this kind of more in the realm of realism, I think I'm going to stay away from that. I don't really like Jordan Love as much as a lot of people do. And I think if you're going to be drafting a quarterback in that first round there, I don't think Jordan Love's the guy you want to go with.
I do.
What's that?
I haven't done a mock draft where I've taken a quarterback in the first round. So there is something sort of interesting to see how the rest of the draft board falls if the Patriots did take a quarterback in the first.
I've done a few of them. I've picked Jordan Love in a few of them just because he's been there, and it makes it pretty difficult to fill some of those other needs that the Patriots need. I think those were early ones where I wasn't having trades in it. So,
right.
But let's see what we can get for a trade here.
Yeah, so one trade that I found has been pretty easy to make is with the Carolina Panthers to get the 6th pick in the second round and the 5th pick in the third round. And we can just fire up the trade value chart here to see what we're talking about. The Patriots have the 23rd overall pick, so that's 760 points. Panthers' second round pick is 520, and their third round pick is 245. So that's only really, 2 points or 5 points off from one another. So let's see if they'll accept that. They declined it. 5 points.
Throw a 6th rounder in
throw
there.
In like a late 6th round pick or something, and they accepted it.
Cool.
All right, so that works out. We bridged that gap. It is tough to pass on, I guess, Justin Herbert and to a lesser degree Jordan Love with that 23rd overall pick. But like you said, as far as realism goes, I think that Justin Herbert's going to go 6th overall to the Los Angeles Chargers. So very unlikely that the Patriots actually would be able to pick him. And I'm warming up a little bit to the idea of Jordan Love, but overall, I think it would be a risky pick to take him, ultimately not really knowing whether he's going to be better than Jarrett Stidham. The appeal of Jordan Love is that he's a Patrick Mahomes type who can, make basically any throw flat-footed, on the run, in the pocket. But he had 20 touchdowns and 17 interceptions last season, and he made some pretty bad decisions in there. All right, so we're back up.
Real quick one before we get into this next pick. This is the danger that you do run into a little bit when you trade out of that 23rd spot, because you see some of these guys that have just gone. Kenneth Murray, Xavier McKinney, even someone like Ezra Cleveland. Those are all guys that we could see, Zach Bond as well, that we could all see fitting in well with the Patriots in that late first round range. And if they trade back, it looks pretty unlikely that they'd be able to land any of those guys. So you have to kind of set the high end of your hopes a little bit lower if they do trade down.
For sure. So yeah, this is the 6th pick in the second round. So the guys just right off the bat that I'm looking at right here would be Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver out of LSU, Brandon Ayuk, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. Then maybe some of these edge defenders as well: Julian Okwara, Terrell Lewis, Curtis Weaver, Josh Uche. We could go way off the board and grab someone like Jeremy Chin at this point, the safety out of Southern Illinois. Not a great linebacker to take right here. I'm not loving a lot of the undersized defensive linemen that are available around the end of the first, early second. Not a great offensive tackle to take. No center or guard really worthy. And then tight ends, we could probably wait until early in the third round unless you really like Cole Kmet here. What are you sort of leaning towards at this point?
I would lean towards Jefferson here. I think
Yeah.
if he falls to this point, I think he's probably the fourth, fifth, sixth best wideout in this class. And I mean, in most years that might not be saying that much, but in this class, that is pretty high praise. And I just think that kind of his overall game would fit in really well with New England. Brandon Ayuk's a guy that I like, but it's probably sort of just like small brain syndrome that I don't think they'll draft an Ohio or a Arizona State wide receiver 2 years in a row. Maybe they will, but I don't know. Just after seeing some of the difficulties that N'Keal Harry had kind of grasping the Patriots offense, which Ayuk actually talked about when I talked to him at the scouting combine. He's like, yeah, it's really different going from Arizona State to going to New England. I don't know. I would lean towards Jefferson with this pick.
Let's just look at, so I've got this nerdy chart going on here with all of the players' scouting combine measurables and how they stack up to the Patriots' average drafted player at that position. So Justin Jefferson, based on this, is a pretty good fit. 4.43 40, that's below the threshold for the Patriots. A little bit above on the 20-yard and 10-yard splits, but good height, good weight. Didn't run the 3-cone or short shuttle, which is always a little bit concerning, but good leap numbers there. Didn't do the bench. 33-inch arms, slightly undersized hands, but overall one of the better fits at wide receiver in this draft for the Patriots. So I'm on board with you there. Let's take Justin Jefferson with the Patriots' first pick in this draft, which just wound up being the 6th pick in the second round. And like you were saying, I mean, yeah, he'll probably be the 5th or 4th wide receiver, something like that in this draft. But that could have been the 10th overall or the 10th overall pick or a top 10 pick in any other draft that didn't have this solid of a wide receiver class. So I definitely support the idea of taking a wide receiver if you trade down early in the second round, because you could wind up getting a player who would usually be a first round pick in a different draft.
It's a little unfortunate, to go back to the point you were just making about from a draft projection standpoint, that so many guys this year didn't do those agility drills, didn't do the 3-cone and didn't do the short shuttle. I know a lot of them were probably planning on running them at their pro days, which ended up most of them being canceled, but it's pretty tough to find, especially for a team like the Patriots that really values those. It makes it a little bit tougher to see which guys are kind of perfect fits for this team.
There's, I think, only 2 players who fit below the Patriots' normal threshold on 3-cone, and that's Denzel Mims and then Dalton Schoen, who wasn't even invited to the combine. Those are pro day numbers for him. So, I mean, that's unbelievable that only 2 guys ran a 3-cone in 6.89 seconds or less when you look at this class. So I've been projecting a lot of guys who run, higher in the 6.9s or even in the low 7s for the Patriots, just because they do value that 7-cone so much, that 3-cone so much. So yeah,
and you look at that group too. You see the guys in there: Henry Ruggs, Jefferson, Ayuk. Going down the list, there were Hamler. Like a lot of the kind of top end guys, you don't really have a great sense of their agility numbers, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, Antonio Gibson, who's another interesting guy. Yeah, a ton of these guys. Lynn Bowden didn't do anything at the combine because he had a hamstring issue. So we've got some trade offers here. The Las Vegas Raiders are offering us a haul for this 3rd round pick. So 245, and then that equals what, 375?
Yeah.
So we'd be kind of insane to not take that trade. The Cowboys are offering us a little bit less. It's not the most realistic trade, but I'll leave this up to you again. Do we stay here with the 5th pick in the 3rd round or trade for the 16th and 17th picks?
Yeah, can we see who we've got on the board here?
Yeah, we've got running back, guard, center, a couple of defensive linemen, another center, Nick Harris.
I think that's
Troutman.
I'd be tempted by Troutman at this spot, but
Right.
I think that's a good that's a good trade to make if you're only moving back 11 spots and getting 2
11
extra
spots.
picks.
Yeah. We probably won't wind up getting one of these tight ends. But there are some tight ends a little bit later that, and who knows? I mean, one of those guys could still be on the board. So that's the risk that you take here. But I think that if they could get this trade, they would absolutely accept it. So yeah, let's accept that one. So we can even pause this to just, so Hunter Bryant's off the board. We're up in 8 picks at this point. So we'll see what else happens here. We might luck out here. Nope, Chapman just went off the board. All right. So
Claypool's another guy that I know you've been high on lately.
yeah, for sure. He's a guy who's kind of a wide receiver tight end hybrid who the Patriots could have used. So let's look at the tight ends right now. Harrison Bryant and Albert Okwuegbunam are the top tight ends on the board here. And we've got back-to-back picks, and then we've got 5 third-round picks coming up. So certainly a lot of opportunities to add a tight end in here, but also some of these other positions of need for the Patriots, like center. We still need a linebacker. We'll see who's on the board there. Malik Harrison's still available. Logan Wilson. As far as edge defenders go, Jabari Zuniga is a good fit. Khalid Kareem out of Notre Dame. Alton Robinson out of Syracuse. As far as safeties go, Jeremy Chin is still available there. So I'm fine with taking a tight end here. In my experience, you've been able to get some of those guys a little bit later, whereas, say, Jeremy Chin or Malik Harrison, the linebacker, those guys usually wind up going a little bit earlier. So what would you be leaning towards here?
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page with you there. I like Malik Harrison here. I like Jeremy Chin here. I might go those two back to back, honestly.
Yeah.
I think those are probably the kind of up near the top of the list of guys that I'd be targeting right around here. If you want to go, I could see the Patriots going sort of outside the box and going someone like Matt Hennessy here, the center out of Temple. But I think addressing those two defensive needs at this point would be a smart move.
Yeah, and I mean, the centers are kind of falling right now too. So it seems like we might be able to pick up one of those guys a little bit later. So I'm with you. Let's take Jeremy Chin, the safety out of Southern Illinois. He's a guy who can really play anywhere from free safety all the way down to linebacker. Very unique player. I can pull up his measurables real quick just so you guys can see them. I've got him listed as a linebacker and a safety in here. So as far as linebackers go, he's 6'3", 221. So he's the 7th best fit at linebacker, and then he's also the 3rd best fit at safety for the Patriots based on his measurables. Runs a 4.45, 41-inch vert. What is that? A 11-foot 8-inch. Yeah,
that's one math computation that I can never do. Every single draft process, I always struggle to, unless it's 120 something. I have a really hard time doing that.
Yeah, it's 11.6, but yeah, crazy broad jump, crazy vert. So we'll grab him there, and then, like you said, let's take Malik Harrison here with the 17th pick in the 3rd round. We can pull up his chart again right now, and he's
up there. Yeah.
Oh, he's actually, I don't have this sorted correctly right now. Sorry. So he's the top fit. Chin is actually the 10th fit. So Malik Harrison, 6'3", 247, 4.66 40, 6.833 cone. His shuttle is right there on the Patriots average. He's the perfect Patriots linebacker. He's a thumper. He's a big guy. He can blitz. I would almost be shocked if the Patriots didn't wind up with him in the 2nd or 3rd round, just because he fits what they want so well.
I was actually just watching some Malik Harrison highlights before we went on to this, coincidentally enough. And did you know he was a quarterback and a wide receiver in high school? And some of the I don't think he was 240 back then, but he was pretty big. And basically it was a situation where the other team would have, he almost looked like a punt gunner. Like 2 guys would just stand right in front of him and he'd run straight past him. It was pretty entertaining. I suggest you check it out.
That's some good stuff. Yeah, no, he's an impressive player there. So now we're back up here, 23rd pick in the 3rd round. Like I said, we've got the 34th and 36th coming up. Nick Harris, center/guard out of Washington, would be a decent pick here. You mentioned Matt Hennessy earlier. One thing that we could do, we could take Nick Harris, or we could take the gamble and see if Matt Hennessy is there in 11 picks. Some other guys on the board that we might be interested in. Quarterbacks, Jake Fromm and Jalen Hurts are still there. Tight end, Harrison Bryant and Albert Okwuegbunam are still available. Probably want to wind up with one of those guys here in the next few picks. Offensive tackle, Alex Taylor, crazy athlete, former basketball player. Matt Peart out of UConn. Our producer, Fred, would probably appreciate if we grab the UConn guy on there. We mentioned the centers there that are there. Edge defenders, Jabari Zuniga is still available. We just grabbed a linebacker and a safety. But what are you thinking here? Should we go tight end just to ensure that we get one of those guys? Should we go for an edge defender, center? What are you leaning? Quarterback?
Jalen Hurts is tempting at this point, but I think I would go Harrison Bryant here. I think he might be a little underrated in these ratings compared to where it sounds like he might go on draft night. I mean, there are some people now projecting him as a potential first-round pick. I think that's a little high.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that he is the best tight end left in that group. I know that Alberto, I'm not even going to attempt the last name. I know he ran a really good 40 at the combine, but didn't do any of the other drills. We don't really know all that much about him as a complete player. I don't think he would be the first tight end I would draft if I was the Patriots. I think I would go Bryant with this pick. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I don't think I've taken Harrison Bryant in one of these mocks yet. And I think that he's a pretty good fit. A little bit slim. He's 6'5", 243, which, I mean, he's basically the same size as Chase Claypool, who's 6'4", 238. BMI, they're probably identical there. And for his size, didn't test fantastic. 4.7, 340. That's good. Good 10-yard split. The 3-cone and the short shuttle are below the Patriots' usual threshold. Same with the vert and the broad jump. But he is a guy who could block a little bit at Florida Atlantic, was super productive. Albert Okwuegbunam, on the other hand, 6'5", 258, ran a 4.49, but didn't do anything else. So who knows what that 3-cone, short shuttle, vert, and broad would have been for him. But it is interesting that you mentioned, who was it? It was Peter Schrager had the Patriots taking Harrison Bryant in the first round of his latest mock. In the first round of his last mock, I think he had Jeremy Chin going. So let's just keep rolling with the Peter Schrager mocks. Grab his last 2 first-round picks for the Patriots here and go with Harrison Bryant.
I definitely think with Bryant, I definitely think with Bryant, it could be a situation where if they're looking to double up at tight end, as they did back in 2010, and as would probably be a pretty decent idea with the depth they have there right now, it could be a situation where they grab maybe a little bit undersized guy like him, and then maybe look for someone like Devin Asiasi or one of the little bit bigger tight ends later in the draft.
Definitely. So we've got some trade offers here. I'm not loving these. 2 fifths, a 6th, and a 7th from the Lions, and then a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, and a future 6th from the Bucks. So I'm going to decline both of those. Now we've got the 34th and 36th picks in the 3rd round. Some of those guys that I had just mentioned flew off the board in between our picks. Who Jabari Zuniga's gone, Van Jefferson's gone, the wide receiver out of Florida, Khalid Kareem, the edge defender out of Notre Dame. So crazy enough, Nick Harris out of Washington, the center, is still there. So that would probably be the player that I would lean towards at this point, just because it's such a good value at this point. But there are some other good players on here. Matt Hennessy, the center out of Temple, a couple of offensive tackles, Alex Taylor and Matt Peart. Jack Driscoll's another guy that I like, tackle / guard out of Auburn. Davon Hamilton is a bigger nose tackle type out of Ohio State. As far as edge defenders go, not the greatest value, but Alton Robinson out of Syracuse. Tight end, Albert Okwuegbunam, still available there. And then as far as quarterbacks go, Jake Fromm and Jalen Hurts are still available there. So tough decision here with these next 2 third-round picks. We're going to wind up with 2 of those players I just mentioned. Personally, Jalen Hurts, as far as quarterbacks, would be the most appealing to me. I wouldn't mind taking Albert Okwuegbunam. Wouldn't mind taking a tackle, whether that's Taylor, Peart, or Driscoll. Certainly wouldn't mind taking a center, whether that's Harris or Hennessy. And probably not going to go defense because the value isn't quite there for me on some of those guys. So what are you thinking as far as quarterbacks, tight ends, and offensive linemen go?
I think the question that we need to answer here then is, do we want to go mid-round day 2 quarterback, or do we want to wait for a sort of developmental type later on? Because I think Jalen Hurts is a good pick here, unless we feel like getting a center and a tight end, or a center and a tackle, or a tight end and a tackle here is kind of a better team building strategy. I think from this, I would go Hurts with one of these 2 picks. So I would probably go Hurts with this pick.
I agree with you.
And then address one of those other needs at number 36.
I really haven't taken a quarterback earlier than like the 6th or 7th round in a lot of my mocks. So this is another instance where I'm curious to see what happens if we do take Hurts. And we've acquired so many extra picks that it's almost like a free player at this point anyway. So I'm totally fine with taking Jalen Hurts here. Cornerback, one off the board. We've got a couple more trade offers. 5th, 6th, 2 7th from the Giants, 2 5ths and a 6th from the Lions. I got to decline both of those and make our pick here. So now it's a lot of the guys that we were just mentioning, but basically tight end or offensive lineman here. I would probably go offensive line. I love the idea of getting Harrison Bryant and Albert Okwuegbunam, but I mean, the Patriots probably will need a center or a tackle at some point around here just to build up their depth a little bit. But if you like the idea of doubling up at tight end here in the 3rd round, I'm totally on board with it.
I agree with you. I think I'm leaning O-line here, both from a practicality standpoint and a what the Patriots will probably do standpoint. Right. I like Matt Peart from UConn. He was a 4-year starter. I don't think he started playing football until high school, so he's still kind of growing into his game a little bit, but he's an athletic guy. He's a tall, long guy.
3rd best fit as far as athletic comps go for me.
Yeah, and that's at a position where he ideally wouldn't be asked to play right away unless something happens with Marcus Cannon or Isaiah Wynn in these next couple months. I like him as a fit there. Who's the one that was ranked higher than him on that list? Alex Taylor.
Yeah.
To be honest, I haven't done much research on him.
He's a basketball player, 6'8", almost 6'9", 308 pounds, super slim, but ran a 5.09 40, good 3-cone, good athlete, but he's a little bit more of a work in progress. I probably agree with you on Matt Peart here, and let's make our boss Fred happy. So let's grab Matt Peart here in the 3rd round, because I think that I'm not sure if the Patriots actually even would take a center in the 3rd round. They need a center, but I like a few of the guys who could be available later, like Darrell Williams I think he went to Texas A&M. I don't want to trade both those picks, so I'm going to decline both these trades. For those listening, we would have been moving up in the 4th round and trading our 4th and 5th round picks, so I'm not really on board with doing that. I want as many picks as possible. But as far as centers go, I mean, some of those guys are still available. Darrell Williams out of Mississippi State. And then we could even grab a guard and try to move him to center. Danny Pinter out of Ball State has been a popular pick for me. He started his career at Ball State as a tight end, packed on 50 pounds, moved to right tackle, but he projects as a guard or center because of his short arms in the NFL. So now we've got 2 trade offers from the Panthers. I'm not sure why they would offer us both of these, but 5th round, 2nd pick in the 5th round and the 6th pick in the 5th round, or a 5th and 6th. I would probably rather keep the 4th round pick here, but let's also just see who's still available here to see if it would make sense to move down. What are you thinking? I'm not loving a lot of these picks here, but I also wouldn't mind staying in the 4th round.
I don't love a lot of those guys. Geno Stone's a decent pick, but we already have a safety.
John Simpson out of Clemson's a decent player, but
Lynn Bowden's on there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be totally opposed to moving down. But the Patriots have had a lot of success in the 4th round, which I guess doesn't really have any bearing on what we're doing right now. But
right.
I don't know. I'll let you decide on this one.
We have so many picks as it is that it feels sort of unrealistic to trade down again.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to decline this and pick here. So as far as our biggest needs at this point, we could use another wide receiver. We could use another tight end. Um, use a center. Darrell Williams is still available. Could use an edge defender. Um, Anthony Jennings or Alex Highsmith could be the pick there. Could use another linebacker. Logan Wilson still available. So I like Lynn Bowden, the wide receiver. Wouldn't mind taking Darrell Williams, the center out of Mississippi State. Wouldn't mind taking Thad Moss out of LSU, a tight end. And also wouldn't mind taking one of these edge defenders, either Anthony Jennings or Alex Highsmith. So what are you thinking at this point?
I like Bowden at this spot.
Yeah.
I think Thad Moss would be a good pick too, but he's also a guy that will maybe won't be around in the next round, but I don't know if he's quite worthy of a 4th round pick either. So
Yeah.
I think I would go Bowden here.
All right, let's go with Lynn Bowden Jr. Here's one of my favorite guys in this draft. Quarterback in his final season at Kentucky when they really had no other option but to move a wide receiver to quarterback. But he projects as a wide receiver, running back, offensive weapon in the NFL. And I think the Patriots could really use a player like that, especially if they have Jarrett Stidham under center, someone who's not quite as good as a Tom Brady type or a top tier quarterback. You could get a little bit more creative on offense and maybe run some option type looks with Lynn Bowden. So he also could return punts. He could be a future slot receiver. A lot of things to like about Lynn Bowden out of Kentucky there. All right, so now we're heading into the 5th round. Just saying some of these guys come off the board since we used our pick. Geno Stone, we mentioned him earlier. Thad Moss, Darrell Williams, those guys all came off the board. James Lynch, he's a defensive tackle that I like. Devin Asiasi, tight end that we mentioned earlier. But we are up now. All right, so as far as team needs go, could definitely use an edge defender. Could definitely use a center. Could use another tight end. Could use possibly another linebacker, defensive tackle. Could be the guy here. I like Metelvin Ajim out of Arkansas. Could grab our kicker at this point too. I know that we don't really need to as far as the simulator goes, but if that's what we think the Patriots are going to do in the 5th round, then it might be worth doing. But what are you thinking right here?
I like my guy, Derek Tuska at this spot. He's someone who was probably a 6th or 7th round pick early in the process, but seems to have been kind of gaining some more notoriety. Really good 3-cone, which was what stood out to me. Stood out about him to me after the combine. Very similar to Chase Winovich in a lot of ways, including the fact that he looks exactly like Chase Winovich with the long blonde hair and everything. Crazy productive at North Dakota State.
Concerning
arm length is short. That is the one kind of concerning point with him. The Patriots don't typically take guys that have that little length.
Right.
But I like him overall. I like I don't hate the Rodrigo Blankenship pick here.
Yeah.
What do we have for tight ends on there?
Some guys that aren't very exciting, and then
it looks like your guy Dalton Keene will probably be available a little later.
Yeah, that's usually the way that I roll. Is I pick Dalton Keene in like the 6th round. We could probably take Danny Pinter in the 6th round as well if we're looking at a center. Certainly could use either a defensive lineman or an edge defender at this point. Khalil Davis.
Najim is an interesting guy as well.
Yeah, he's my top fit as far as defensive linemen go. 4.98 40 at 309 pounds, 7.55 3-cone, 4.66 short shuttle. I think both of those were at his pro day, but super athletic for his size.
Let's go Ajim. We need some beef down there.
Yeah, let's go with McTelvin Ajim. Then we can take a kicker in the 6th round and then see sort of what else is available as far as edge defenders and tight ends and centers go. So basically, by taking the quarterback, by taking Jalen Hurts, we sort of had to give up on another need, whether that was at center or defensive end. And you sort of have to just kind of boot that need down the line. That's also what happens when you take, a safety and a linebacker early on. You sort of have to eschew another need to take one of those players.
Yeah, even with 12 picks, it can be difficult to hit everything you need to hit.
All right, so at this point, we could take the kicker, or your guy Derek Tuska is still available here at defensive end. So I would probably lean towards taking Tuska now and then maybe grabbing the kicker a little bit later. What are
Yeah,
you thinking about this?
let's do Tuska. I think he's a guy that could, at the very least, be a kind of a core special teamer early
For
on.
sure.
So I think he's a good pick there.
Yep. All right. And now we can basically just assume that the kicker is still going to be available here. He
Yep.
is. So are we going to still take Blankenship, or are we going to grab one of these other guys?
I mean, everybody's kind of been talking about Tyler Bass lately. I looked at his numbers, and they're not very good.
I know.
I know that Georgia Southern was kind of a weird offense, and that sort of shaped the way that their entire team was run. But I don't know. I wasn't very impressed with the numbers from him. I like Blankenship here. Honestly, I won't pretend to be an expert about all the college kickers that are available, but he would probably be my pick here.
Let's go with it. Let's go with Rodrigo Blankenship. I don't think I've ever taken another kicker. I've taken a second kicker, but Blankenship has always been my top kicker in every mock draft that I've done, I think. All right, we're back up here. 33rd pick in the 6th round. Guys that I would be leaning towards here would be Dalton Keene, the tight end, or one of these centers or guards. We can just really quickly look at interior offensive line. Fits in here. Basically, there's not a lot of great ones beyond Pinter. Keith Ismail out of San Diego State. Is he still available in here too? He is. So we could take Keith Ismail. We could take Danny Pinter. We could take John Runyon, but he's more of a guard option probably. I'm not sure if Pinter can play center. Keith Ismail, we know can. What are you thinking about a center here?
I think Keene here, and then Ishmael with the next pick.
Sure.
Which, I mean, might be kind of cheating because we can see how the board is playing out.
I know.
But I think that's a way to fill both needs. I mean, what's his name? Keene will probably be available at that next pick anyway, but I like going with him here.
Yeah, he probably won't be a 7th round pick. Maybe I'm just talking him up too much. Maybe he will be, but when you look at our tight end fits in here, he's number 1. It's him and Troutman tied, but he's got good size. It's kind of amazing. He's shorter and almost the same weight as Adam Troutman. Ran a 4.7 140, 7.07 3 cone, 4.19 short shuttle, over 10-foot broad jump. Got shorter arms. He looks smaller for some reason than some of those other tight ends, but I mean, 6'4", 252 is a pretty good size as far as a tight end goes.
Yeah, and it's solid to get that, even though he's not kind of a jumbo-sized tight end, he is bigger than Bryant, so we've got a little bit of that that kind of extra size at the position now.
He was a running back, fullback, H-back, and tight end at Virginia Tech. Not very productive. That's the biggest knock on him. But, I mean, as I wrote a few weeks ago, George Kittle actually also was not productive at all at Iowa, and he's gone on to become the best tight end in the NFL. So I think that there are some similarities there between Keene and Kittle, where I would certainly take a shot on Keene late in the draft. So our guy Keith Ismail is still there. I don't know why I keep saying Kith. I've developed some sort of like speech impediment here. But are we still feeling good about Keith Ismail here?
Yeah, I think it's good to get a center in here at some point because the Patriots don't really have a backup center at this point. Right. I know Yelda Froholt played a little bit of center in college, but he was almost exclusively a guard. So I'm not even actually sure who – I would assume he is their backup center right now. But for a guy that doesn't have a ton of experience there and didn't play at all last year, good to get some other – at least somebody else who's played the position before.
For sure. I don't think he's even on this board. But this guy Kyle Hinton is, I just want to bring him up. He's 6'2", 295, went to Washburn. These are pro day numbers, but ran a 4.88 40, 171 10-yard split, which is insane for an offensive lineman. 7.7 3 cone, 4.66 short shuttle, 34.5-inch vertical leap, 10-foot 1-inch broad jump, 34 bench reps with 32.5-inch arms. He's just an insane athlete that I sort of discovered along this process. One of the few guys who actually got to have a pro day at all. But like I said, I don't think he's on here. Otherwise, I probably would have taken him. But let's take Keith here in the 7th round. And then we've
Yeah.
got one more 7th round pick.
I know we mentioned this probably on last week's podcast, but there's a very strong probability that Bill Belichick will draft a player that most people have never heard of, especially in this draft
For
where
sure.
there hasn't been any pro days. But for teams that have been kind of proactive with that type of thing, they're going to be able to unearth some players that a lot of people aren't particularly familiar with. Like is what's his name, Tyson Render on this list?
That's a very good question.
Player that
I don't think he.
I haven't seen that. This was the player that Bill Belichick was working out in the rain at Middle Tennessee State right before the combine. I haven't seen anything written about him or any of the draft sites covering him at all, or the fact that even after this happened, I mean, there were a couple follow-up stories that were like, what was it like to talk to Bill Belichick? But it didn't even seem to kind of like put him as a blip on the draft radar.
No.
It's interesting still to see like that was the type of player that Belichick was kind of seeking out before the combine. And I wouldn't be surprised if Patriots end up picking him at some point.
No, certainly not. All right. So last pick in the 7th round here, I certainly have some guys in mind. I just want to go through a few possibilities here. Carlos Davis, twins with Khalil Davis, guy that I mentioned earlier. Both of those guys ran like 4.8 or 4.7 40s at 309 pounds. That's insanity. As far as not a lot of edge defenders I love, but Carter Coughlin, Minnesota linebacker, I'll pull him up. He was an edge defender at Minnesota, but the Patriots would probably move him into either an off-the-ball linebacker role or an edge defender role, but very similar in size and athleticism to Kyle Van Noy. And he was actually one of Pro Football Focus's most productive pass rushers and better run stoppers at Minnesota. He's just undersized. He's only got 31-inch arms. He's 6'3", 236, but that's a type of player that the Patriots usually sort of like. And then a safety that I really like is Tanner Muse out of Clemson as well. He's a little bit too similar possibly to the safety that we took a little bit earlier, Jeremy Chin. But he's a very similar size, 6'2", 227, 4.41 40-yard dash, 1.56 10-yard split, 6'9", 4.3 cone, 4.12 short shuttle. He played safety at Clemson, but a lot of people are mocking him as a linebacker since he's 227 pounds. I would probably lean towards Coughlin at this point, but how are you feeling?
Yeah, I would probably lean that way as well. Unless are there any kind of free safety types still available here that catch your eye?
Not really.
Yeah.
I think that the appeal of taking Chin is that he could potentially play a little bit of free safety with the 4.45 40. Aloha Gilman, I would mention he's on the
He's a guy that's been talked about. I don't know.
He has been. He's where is he? All right, so he ran a 4.6 40, but he's got a 6.81 3 cone and 4.08 short shuttle. He transferred from Navy, however, so I'm not sure if Bill Belichick would be on board with the Aloha Gilman train. I know.
Yeah, does he like him because he went to the Navy, or does he not like him because he left Navy?
I think that a lot of Navy people were upset when he transferred from Navy.
Oh, yeah.
And their head coach really tried to talk him into staying. So I don't know. It could go either way on that one. He's got the Navy connection, but transferring from Navy might have been sort of a bad luck. But
I like Coughlin.
I
like Muse. I think he's definitely a guy that could like slide into special teams right away.
Right.
But I do get the point that he's pretty similar to Jeremy Chin in a lot of ways. Right. Coughlin seems like a smart pick here.
And I mean, we've got one linebacker, Malik Harrison. We've got one edge defender, Derek Tushka. I think the Patriots could use multiple players at one of those roles. So Carter Coughlin, you basically just sort of bring him in and then see what he can do. But I honestly wouldn't mind if the Patriots took Carter Coughlin in like the 4th or 5th round. He was so productive at Minnesota. He's such a good athlete that you either have to bulk him up and try to make him work at defensive end, or you could just see how the experiment works with him moving off the ball. But I think that he's a guy who fits what the Patriots do really well. So we took a ton of players here. We took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 players. So I guess we only accumulated one extra pick, but filled every possible need. I think the Patriots would do great if they did this. I think they should probably just hire us and let us run their draft board. But how are you feeling about this?
I'm a big fan of this draft. I like what we were able to get. It seems like we were able to at least somewhat address all of the needs that we had coming in here. Maybe some of them were a little bit later than we would have hoped. But overall, I think this is a solid haul. And one point toward the fact that we drafted 13 players, which is probably unrealistic, but the fact that according to some tweets last week or 2 weeks ago from Jim Nagy, who is the Senior Bowl executive or the Senior Bowl director who used to work for the Patriots as a scout, he was explaining that undrafted free agency this year is going to be an absolute nightmare with teams really struggling because everybody's going to be doing this draft from their own home. So there's not going to be much sort of centralized communication. He said that's going to be a real bleep show, basically. I wouldn't be totally surprised if some teams, potentially the Patriots, just end up rather than kind of usually if a team has 13 picks, they'll package a few together at the end of the draft and move up or trade them for future picks or what have you. I wouldn't be surprised if a team's going to say, hey, we're going to draft 13 guys and then we'll sign 4 undrafted free agents rather than drafting 6 guys and bringing in 10 undrafted free agents. So that'll be something to watch once we get toward the end on day 3.
On our list here, Tuska, Blankenship, Keene, Ismail, and Coughlin, you can almost kind of consider them almost undrafted free agents on this list, where those are the guys who maybe they would pick up after the draft or whatever would be in a normal circumstance. But yeah, like you said, maybe they'll use those picks. Let's just go over everything one more time while the screen is still up. So Justin Jefferson out of LSU was our top pick. We traded down with the Carolina Panthers right off the bat. Then we traded down again with the Las Vegas Raiders, picked up Jeremy Chin and Malik Harrison, safety and linebacker. Chin can also play a little bit of linebacker himself. Harrison's a good blitzer. Then we got Harrison Bryant out of FAU. Skinny tight end, but decent blocker, very productive at FAU. He was the Mackey Award winner. Jalen Hurts at quarterback. In the 3rd round. Even if he didn't win the starting quarterback role with the Patriots, they could still use him in a sort of Taysom Hill / Lamar Jackson early in his career type role. Matt Peart out of UConn. If the Patriots want to clear cap space, one way to do that would be to release or trade Marcus Cannon. So he's a guy who could compete with Yannick Adjust for potentially a starting role. If not, he could be a depth option. Lynn Bowden, super versatile wide receiver out of Kentucky. McTelvin Najim, bigger defensive tackle, but also a guy who can get after the passer a little bit, good run defender. He had a crazy quote in his Pro Football Focus draft guide where his middle school principal said that, I think it was like in 5 or 10 years or something, he would either be in jail or dead. Meanwhile, now he's a NFL draft prospect, and he was actually a captain in his senior season at Arkansas. So throw that in the face of his middle school principal that he's certainly come a long way since that point. FCS defensive end, Derek Tuska out of North Dakota State. Rodrigo Blankenship, our kicker. Tight end, Dalton Keene, athletic, versatile tight end. Keith Ismail, center out of San Diego State. And then another versatile option there, Carter Coughlin, linebacker / defensive end out of Minnesota. As you said, I would feel pretty good about that draft if the Patriots did it. I'm sure they will go completely differently, but I hope that gave everyone a pretty good sense of everything that the Patriots could do, all of the players they could be potentially looking at, and all of the situations that they could encounter during the NFL draft, which is kind of the point of doing a mock draft like that.
Absolutely. That was fun.
Absolutely. That was fun. We will be back next week, either before or after the draft. We'll kind of have to figure it out, probably after the draft, or at least after the first day of the draft to sort of recap what goes on. But keep it on NESN.com for all the Patriots coverage before that point. Follow Zack on Twitter at ZackTalksNESN. Follow me on Twitter at Doug Kyed. And we will continue to crank out that draft content both before, during, and after the NFL draft, which starts on September.